I'm Liam. I'm 35, single dad, 2 kids, Ava, 7, and Mason, 5. I run my own carpentry business, small but steady. Built it from nothing after my ex walked out when Mason was still in diapers. My life revolves around those 2 little goofballs, the smell of sawdust, and, lately, the sound of my phone ringing off the hook with Christmas chaos. Or at least it used to. Family's complicated, isn't it always? My mom, Sharon, is the type who calls herself old-fashioned, which basically means she plays favorites and expects everyone to pretend not to notice. My dad, Roger, has never said no to her in 40 years. They live 2 hours away in a big colonial house that they decorate like it's a Macy's showroom every December. Growing up, Christmas was sacred. Matching pajamas, Sharon's famous cinnamon rolls, Roger reading the same dusty storybook by the fireplace. It was the one time of year things felt, not broken. Even after my divorce, even after everything fell apart, they insisted I come every year with the kids. It wouldn't be Christmas without you, Mom used to say. That changed this year. Drastically. It all started in late November when I got the call. I was at the shop, sanding a custom oak dining table for a client, when my phone buzzed. Mom on the screen. I wiped my hands on my jeans and picked up, expecting to hear her usual cheerful voice asking what Ava and Mason wanted from Santa this year. Instead, her tone was clipped. Formal. Like she was speaking to a coworker she barely tolerated. Liam, I wanted to let you know we're keeping Christmas small this year. I blinked. Small? What do you mean? Well, it's just going to be your brother, his new girlfriend, and us. Very intimate. Quiet. No noise. There was a long pause, and I could practically hear her chewing on the edge of her lip like she does when she's about to say something insulting, but pretending it's not. My stomach dropped before she even said it. She's a very refined woman, Liam. Very classy. She's used to a certain kind of atmosphere. Now, I've put up with a lot of backhanded nonsense over the years. Passive digs about being a single dad, veiled comments about how my kids are spirited, but this was a new low. So my kids and I aren't invited? Because your guest might be allergic to what? Laughter. It's not personal, she said quickly, as if that somehow made it better. It's just, she's very poised. I think she might be overwhelmed by chaos. Chaos. That's what she called my children. The 2 people I love most in this world. The ones who still believed in Santa and left carrots out for the reindeer. Who made homemade ornaments with glitter and pipe cleaners every year just to hang on her stupid fake pine tree. I felt something hot rise in my chest, but I didn't let it show. No problem, I said, voice flat. Liam. I hung up. I stood there for a full minute, staring at the table I was building, wondering how many times I'd carved something with these hands while biting my tongue for the sake of keeping the family peace. I could feel the grit of sawdust clinging to my skin, the kind that never really washes off, not just from wood, but from years of being treated like the family embarrassment. The afterthought, the burden. I wasn't about to let my kids feel that same sting. For the next couple of weeks, I didn't speak to them. No calls, no texts, nothing. I took Ava and Mason to the Christmas market downtown, let them pick out their own decorations for our apartment tree. We made gingerbread houses and watched those terrible claymation movies that Mason always begs for. It was peaceful, it was honest, it was ours. Then, on Christmas Eve, just as I was pulling the ham out of the oven, there was a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone. I opened it, and there they were. My parents, my brother Jake, and a woman I'd never seen before in a long tan coat with fur cuffs and heels too high for snow. She had perfectly curled hair, a handbag that probably cost more than my kitchen appliances, and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. And the first thing she said when she saw me, "Wait, is he your brother?" That's when I knew. This Christmas was about to get a whole lot messier than they ever expected. My first instinct was to laugh. Not a happy laugh, the kind that leaks out when your brain short-circuits from disbelief. I blinked at the woman standing on my porch like it was the red carpet, heels sunk half an inch into the snowbank, clutching her handbag like she expected me to demand a cover charge. My parents hovered awkwardly behind her, and Jake. Well, Jake was wearing that smug, dead-eyed expression I hadn't seen since high school, back when he was getting away with things I'd be grounded for. "Wait, is he your brother?" she said again, turning slightly to Jake like she had just recognized me from a wanted poster. Jake glanced at me, then back to her. "Yeah, that's Liam." She tilted her head, frowning. You didn't say he had kids. She looked past me into the apartment, where Ava had poked her head around the corner, cheeks still painted with the snowman face we'd drawn earlier for our Christmas costume contest. Her brother trailed behind her, dragging a string of battery-powered lights like it was a pet snake. Jake chuckled nervously. Well, yeah. I mean, he's always been kind of the rustic sibling. Rustic? I nearly choked. Okay, I said, stepping back with a forced smile. You're all standing in the snow, so unless this is an ambush or a mobile critique of my life choices, come inside. No one moved at first. It was like they had to process whether they were really going to step into a house that had glitter on the floor and visible toys in the living room. Finally, my mom cleared her throat and made the first move, brushing past me without so much as eye contact. She always did that thing where she walked into my place like she was doing a home inspection. Her eyes flicked from the handmade wreath on the door to the unframed art Ava had scribbled and taped to the walls. It's very festive, she muttered. Thanks, I said. It was either this or the sterile, silent monastery vibe you were going for. Dad gave me a tight-lipped smile and followed her in. Jake stepped inside next and did a quick, dismissive scan like he was looking for evidence of failure. The girlfriend, Rachel, I would soon learn, lingered in the doorway. I noticed she hadn't taken her shoes off, which I guess was just par for the course when you consider yourself too elegant for socks. She looked around the place and said, "It's cozy." "I'll take that as a compliment," I replied, shutting the door behind her. The apartment suddenly felt a lot smaller. I guided them toward the dining table, where Ava had carefully placed 3 mismatched candles and a napkin holder shaped like a snowman. The table was clearly set for 3. My mom noticed instantly. "You didn't expect us?" she asked, feigning surprise. "Nope," I said, heading back into the kitchen to check on the ham. Because I was explicitly told I wasn't invited. Remember? I heard her sigh, followed by the soft clink of her bracelets as she moved something on the table. "That's not what I said. Mom, you literally said Christmas was going to be very intimate, and that my kids were too chaotic for your new guest." Rachel smiled faintly. "I don't think I used those exact words. You weren't even on the phone," I said, sharper than I meant to. "But you seem to have inspired the phrasing." There was a silence thick enough to slice, interrupted only by the faint jingle of Mason shaking the wrapped presents under the tree. Jake finally broke it. "We figured it'd be nice to surprise you. You know, put the past behind us. Do Christmas as a family." I turned around, raising an eyebrow. "What past are we talking about exactly? The one where you all excluded us for the sake of appearances?" Jake shrugged. "Don't be so dramatic, man." I let the insult float for a second before shaking my head and pulling the ham out of the oven. The smell filled the room. Honey glaze and cloves, warm and comforting. Ava was bouncing with excitement, while Mason sat at the little table in the corner where he was building a Lego police station. Then Rachel muttered, "Is there something vegetarian?" I froze, holding the hot tray in my oven mitts. "Vegetarian?" I asked. She gave me a tight-lipped smile. "I don't eat meat." "I wasn't told anyone was coming," I replied, setting the tray down with more force than necessary. "So no, I didn't make a second entree. I just assumed," she said, touching her curls like she'd been inconvenienced by my ignorance. And that was the moment I knew this wasn't about family. It was a performance. They'd decided, after ditching us, to show up here and play happy family in my space, under my roof, with my kids, all while treating my life like a charity project they could feel good about visiting. Still, I bit my tongue. For the kids, dinner was awkward. Ava, bless her, kept trying to engage everyone with her best Christmas jokes. "What do you get if you cross a snowman and a dog?" "Frostbite," she squealed. Only Mason laughed. My mom didn't even smile. Rachel spent most of the time pushing steamed carrots around her plate, and Jake just kept checking his watch like he had a private yacht waiting outside. About halfway through the meal, Rachel finally leaned toward Ava and said, "So, what's it like growing up in a place like this?" Ava blinked. "Like what?" Rachel gestured vaguely. "You know, small. No yard. So many colors." My jaw clenched. "We do just fine, thanks." "Oh, of course," she said quickly. "It's just, Jake grew up in a very different environment. Grand piano, horses, that sort of thing." "Yeah," I said dryly. "I remember. I was there too. Just in the background, apparently." Jake rolled his eyes. "Are you ever going to let that go? That was rich, coming from the guy who used to make fun of my hand-me-down shoes while we both lived in the same house. The golden child. The miracle boy. He could crash my car at 16 and get a pat on the back. I miss a phone bill payment one time in college and get cut off from the emergency fund. The one I found out later was still funding Jake's Europe trips. But I didn't say that. Not yet. After dessert, which no one touched except Mason, who ate half the gingerbread house when I wasn't looking, my mom announced they had one more surprise. Jake stood up and reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a small envelope. I narrowed my eyes. "What's this?" "An invitation," he said. "Rachel and I are getting engaged. Figured you might as well be included. Ceremony's next month." "Wait," I said, my voice dropping. "You came here to hand-deliver a wedding invite after uninviting us from Christmas?" Mom chimed in. "Oh, don't be petty. This is a big moment for the family." Rachel smiled again, that practiced, smug smile, and added, "Plus, it's going to be very tasteful. Adults only." I stared at them, stunned. "So my kids aren't invited?" "It's just not that kind of event," Jake said. "We've already made arrangements. But we'd love it if you could attend. You could bring someone, if you're seeing anyone." I looked at my children, who were now both silently watching, their smiles gone. Mason clutched his toy police car like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. That's when something cracked inside me. "So let me get this straight," I said, standing slowly. "You excluded my kids from Christmas because they weren't classy enough for your guest. Then you show up uninvited, criticize my home, insult my parenting, and now you want me to come to your wedding while leaving my children with a babysitter? And I'm supposed to feel what? Honored?" Jake's jaw tensed. "Don't turn this into a scene." "I'm not turning anything into anything. I'm finally saying it out loud." Mom stood up, her voice sharp. "Liam, you're being ungrateful. We came all this way." "No," I interrupted. "You didn't come here for us. You came to show off. To parade your shiny new future in front of the messy parts of your past. But I'm done pretending that's okay." The room went still. Rachel adjusted her coat and stood, as if the staleness of my modest apartment was finally too much for her curated lungs. She looked at me one last time and said, "Wow, you really are his brother." That's when Ava quietly slipped her hand into mine and whispered, "Dad, are they going to make us leave our house?" I knelt beside her and said, "No, baby, this is our home. No one's kicking us out." Behind me, my mom sighed heavily. "Well, I guess we should go if you're going to be like this." "I think that's a great idea," I said. I walked to the door, opened it, and held it wide. Snow was falling again. The wind howled just enough to make the silence unbearable. One by one, they filed out. My dad avoided my eyes. My mom mumbled something about hoping I'd come to my senses. Jake looked annoyed, like I had ruined his PR campaign. Rachel stepped out last, but just before she did, she looked back over her shoulder, eyes scanning my face. Then she said something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. "Jake never told me you were the one who stayed behind and looked after their parents when they lost everything that year. Funny how people leave out the important parts." She stepped out into the snow, heels crunching on the icy sidewalk. And that's when I realized she didn't know everything about Jake. Not yet. After the door closed and their footsteps faded into the snow, I stood there for a long time, just standing in the hallway. The living room still smelled like ham and cinnamon, but it felt like someone had vacuumed the warmth right out of the place. I heard Ava go back to the couch, curling under the blanket we'd been sharing all week for movie nights. Mason went to the window and watched the taillights until they disappeared. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed listening to every creak, every gust of wind. My brain kept looping Rachel's words. Funny how people leave out the important parts. Something about the way she said it, like she was seeing cracks in Jake's golden boy exterior. Like she knew there was more to the story. But instead of feeling vindicated, I just felt hollow. Because the truth was, I had let it happen. All of it. The next morning, the weight settled in. The holidays ended. The decorations came down. School started again. Orders at the shop slowed. January always meant fewer custom jobs. My bills didn't slow down, though, and I was tired. Not just in my bones, but somewhere deeper. The kind of tired that crawls into your chest and just sits there. Mom didn't call. Dad texted once a week. "Hope the kids had a nice Christmas. Let us know if you want to talk." I didn't reply. And Jake? Nothing. Not a word. Not a thanks. Not an apology. Not even a follow-up about the wedding invitation. I assumed I was no longer expected to attend. It should have been a clean break, right? That was my chance to walk away, to protect my kids from the cycle. And for a while I did. But some wounds don't scab over right away. Some fester quietly, especially the ones tied to people you were raised to trust. I started noticing things. Or maybe I was just finally ready to see them. Ava came home from school one day with a handmade card, Grandma's Snow Angel. It had glitter and puffy paint and a stick figure labeled Me and Nana in the Snow. I sat her down gently and asked, "Sweetheart, when was the last time you saw Nana in the snow?" She thought hard. At Uncle Jake's birthday. But she didn't want to play because her boots were for restaurants. That was 2 years ago. It clicked then. They weren't just ignoring me. They were slowly erasing my kids, too. Quietly. Elegantly. They'd show up for Jake's events, post pictures of Rachel's brunches, tag each other in Facebook photos at vineyard tours and lake house weekends. And my family? We were the untagged, unseen, uninvited. Not dramatic enough for the album. Too chaotic for the brand. One night in early February, after putting the kids to bed, I stood in the kitchen washing a single plate, and something in me broke. Not in a loud, throwing things kind of way. It was quieter than that. It was the realization that I had spent most of my adult life trying to earn back a kind of love that never really existed. So I stopped trying. I didn't tell anyone. Not even my best friend, Nate, who'd known me since trade school and always smelled drama from a mile away. I just started doing the work. On myself. On my business. On being the kind of dad I wished I'd had growing up. Present. Imperfect, but consistent. The first thing I did was purge my phone. I deleted the group chat my mom kept renaming Fam Jams. Unfollowed Jake on Instagram. Muted my parents. I blocked Rachel entirely. Not because she had done anything worse than the others, but because I knew her kind, performative empathy wrapped in pearl earrings. I didn't need her sudden curiosity about my other side. Then I cleaned my shop from top to bottom, reorganized everything, built 2 new sample pieces, and posted videos of the process on a whim. To my surprise, those videos got some traction. Nothing viral, but enough that I got a few messages from people asking for custom work. One guy asked for a reclaimed wood bookshelf with hidden compartments. Another wanted a chess table, like the one in Queen's Gambit, but with bottle storage. Business picked up. Slowly, then steadily. And something weird happened. I started looking forward to waking up again. Ava and Mason helped where they could. They'd sweep sawdust with mini brooms, hand me measuring tape, and paint little signs that read, "Dad's Shop," and "Oh, Rachel's Allowed," which, admittedly, I didn't stop them from taping to the front window. We started a routine. After school, we'd hit the library, grab hot cocoa from the corner bakery, then head to the shop for an hour or two. It became our thing. People noticed. One afternoon, a woman named Carla came into the shop holding a photo of an old cedar trunk her grandmother owned. She asked if I could replicate it as a hope chest for her niece. We got to talking, and when she saw Ava sketching hearts in the corner, she said, "You must be the dad all the teachers talk about at school pickup." I blinked. "They talk about me?" "Oh yeah," she laughed. "You're the woodworking dad who bakes and never misses the art fairs. You're like a unicorn." That night, I cried. Not because of what she said, but because I believed her. Not long after that, I was offered a booth at the spring craft market. First one I'd ever done solo. I poured everything into it. Built miniature furniture displays, hand-cut wooden toys, even a little bench carved with the phrase, "Made with love," and splinters. Ava helped paint the sign. Mason helped test every toy for durability, usually by throwing them at the couch. The weekend of the market was crisp, sunny, and packed. People stopped by just to watch me work. I had a chalkboard that said, "Ask me what this tool does," and kids would crowd around pointing at weird saws and planers. Ava loved playing tour guide. Mason gave out high fives like they were candy. By the end of Sunday, I had 3 weeks' worth of commissions and a coffee-stained notebook full of compliments. One of them stood out. A woman had written, "Your kids shine because you do. Never forget that." I didn't. I framed it. Then came March. The official wedding invitation arrived. Not by mail, but in a group email, which I guess was Jake's way of streamlining the guest list. It was all digital. We're going green. Less chaos, more class. Attached was a PDF with a pastel floral border, an itinerary broken down into pre-ceremony yoga, golden hour cocktail hour, and a bolded note at the bottom that read, "Please note, this event is child-free. Exceptions will not be made. There it was again. Chaos. Like it was a dirty word. Like it was a person. The RSVP link stared at me. There was a box labeled attending, and underneath it, another labeled dietary restrictions. I didn't click either. Instead, I opened a blank Word doc and started writing something else. A list. It was titled, All the Times I Stayed Silent. I started at the top. That summer when Dad forgot to pick me up from baseball camp because Jake had a violin recital. That Christmas Eve when Mom replaced my gift with socks after I spilled juice on her tablecloth. The family reunion where Jake gave a speech and thanked everyone who mattered, and I laughed too loudly, only to get told later that I was embarrassing myself. I kept writing, page after page. It wasn't about revenge. Not yet. It was about finally remembering what happened. On my terms. But what I didn't know, not yet, was that someone else was about to remember too. Someone unexpected. And this time, it wouldn't be so easy to ignore the chaos. I didn't attend the wedding. I didn't even RSVP. But I did read the email again. Twice. Just to be sure I wasn't imagining the part where Jake managed to pack passive aggression, elitism, and complete emotional oblivion into one floral-bordered attachment. Less chaos, more class. I could hear Rachel saying it in that clipped, curated voice of hers. They didn't follow up. Not Mom. Not Dad. Not even a lazy, just checking in text. I guess when the black sheep skips your black tie event, you're just grateful the barn smell didn't show up. Which would have been fine, if that was the end of it. But something strange started happening about a week later. Little things, at first. I was at Ava's school helping her class build birdhouses when her teacher, Miss Connors, leaned over and asked if I had ever thought of offering workshops. She mentioned a local women's entrepreneur circle that needed someone to host a skills demo for their spring retreat. I laughed, brushing sawdust off my sleeves, but said I'd think about it. Then Nate, my oldest friend and the closest thing I had to a brother that didn't come with emotional landmines, dropped by the shop with coffee. He looked sheepish. I got a weird message the other day, he said, taking a sip. From Rachel. I nearly dropped the clamp I was tightening. What? Yeah. On LinkedIn, of all places. Said she was trying to learn more about the community Jake came from. I scoffed. And she thought you'd be the historian? He shrugged. Guess so. She asked what your business was called. Wanted to see your work. Said she saw some pieces on Instagram and was impressed. That made me pause. I hadn't posted anything on Instagram in weeks. And my account was private. But Ava had been using my phone to record time lapses of me building things and uploading little snippets to YouTube Shorts. I figured no one beyond some DIY nerds were watching. I was wrong. That night, I checked the stats. One of the videos, a sped-up clip of me building a wooden toy barn while Mason handed me nails like a foreman, had over 200,000 views. The comments were full of strangers saying things like, "This dad's a whole vibe. Imagine having a childhood like this. Love wins. Some people build furniture. This guy builds peace." I sat there for a long time, rereading those comments. Then I went to the search bar and typed in Jake wedding just for kicks. That's when I found her. Rachel. She had a public Pinterest board titled Elegant Farmhouse Vows. It was full of champagne-colored napkins, reclaimed barnwood archways, and vintage furniture layouts. She had pinned my work. Several times. At first, I felt sick. Then something else settled in. Not rage. Not even hurt. Just a quiet shift. Because suddenly, I wasn't the chaos anymore. I was the aesthetic. A few days later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I let those go to voicemail, but something told me to pick it up. "Hello." "Hi," said a woman's voice. "Is this Liam Carter?" "The woodworker." I confirmed. She introduced herself as Dana, a wedding planner for a luxury events company. She said she'd been looking for someone who could do rustic custom furniture rentals, benches, arches, table sets. One of her clients had sent her a video of mine and insisted they had to work with me. I said I wasn't in the rental business. She said I'd be paid per event. Then she dropped the number. My eyebrows went up. Per event. Yes. And this one's a big one. High profile. Groom's family is complicated. Bride wants a sincere rustic feel, whatever that means. Are you available next month? I froze. What's the wedding date? She told me. Same date as Jake's. I said yes. The planning phase was surreal. I was brought on to build a custom wedding arch, 12 8-foot farmhouse tables, and a memory wall of miniature drawers that guests could open to find handwritten notes from the couple. The bride had also requested a sign with their initials, burned into reclaimed cedar, and a quote underneath that read, "True class doesn't whisper. It echoes." The irony nearly knocked me over. I never saw Jake or Rachel. All communication went through Dana, who forwarded sketches, photos, and requests with timestamps and bullet points. But with every new email, it became clearer. Rachel had no idea the man she dismissed in my living room was now designing half her dream wedding. She didn't recognize the shop logo. She didn't connect the social media dots. And Jake clearly wasn't paying attention, or he knew and chose not to say anything, which would have been just like him. Easier to ignore a ticking bomb if you pretend it's a centerpiece. The workshop became a war room. I brought Nate on to help with deliveries. Ava and Mason helped me stain the benches. I worked late into the night, carving initials, sanding boards, triple-checking every angle. It wasn't just about quality. It was about message. Every piece was quiet, solid, built to last. The opposite of the people who told me I wasn't enough. One afternoon, a week before the wedding, Dana called with a final request. "Bride wants a backup arch," she said. "Rain's in the forecast. Can we make a second one she can use indoors?" I said I could. Then I asked, "Do they know who I am?" She paused. "Excuse me. The couple. Do they know I'm Jake's brother?" There was a beat of silence. Then, "Rachel doesn't." I don't think Jake said anything. That made me laugh. Dana didn't. She asked if that was going to be a problem. I said, "Only if I do a bad job." The night before the wedding, I loaded everything into the trucks. Nate helped secure the arch with padded straps while I walked around checking corners. I had this nervous buzz in my chest, like something important was about to happen and I couldn't see it yet. Ava was drawing hearts in the sawdust. Mason was pretending to interview me with a paintbrush as a microphone. "Sir," he said in a mock-serious voice, "is this the most important furniture you've ever built?" I smiled. "Yeah, buddy. I think it is." And I meant it. Because this wasn't just a wedding. It was a reveal. I arrived early on the day of the wedding. The venue was stunning. A private vineyard with a rolling view of golden hills and a restored barn that looked like something out of a lifestyle magazine. The inside had been emptied and polished. My benches were lined in 2 rows, each one facing the cedar arch I had carved by hand. On each seat was a small wooden box containing a note from the bride and groom. I stood there for a moment, just taking it in. Then Dana walked over. She looked nervous. "Rachel wants to meet the vendor behind the memory wall," she said. "She's asking questions." My stomach didn't drop. My hands didn't shake. I just nodded. "Where is she?" Dana pointed to the barn entrance. Rachel was standing there in a silk robe, her hair in rollers, holding a clipboard and barking instructions to a teenager in a headset. She turned, spotted me, and her face lit up, friendly, unaware. "You must be the craftsman," she said, walking over in her designer flats. "I just wanted to say, your work is incredible. Seriously, this wall is everything I wanted. Do you do home pieces too? I might want a reading nook built into my loft." I smiled. Then I saw it. That flicker, the slight narrowing of her eyes, the pause, the slow, unsure step back. "Wait," she said. "I've seen you before." I waited. Then she said it. "Wait, is he your brother?" The line. The exact same line. But this time, she was the one saying it with panic. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. She took another step back, the clipboard lowering slightly. "Oh my God, Liam." I just smiled. "Hello, Rachel." And the expression that crossed her face, the way her perfect wedding planning brain scrambled to recalculate everything, was more satisfying than I ever expected. She opened her mouth, about to say something. But then Dana appeared behind her, holding a clipboard of her own. "We're ready for your approval on the floral arrangements," she said sweetly, gently pulling Rachel away like a bouncer at a VIP party. Rachel hesitated, then looked at me one last time, eyes flickering between guilt, confusion, and something else. Fear? No. Realization. That she had built her fantasy wedding on the foundation of the very person she and my family had tried to erase. And I wasn't done yet. Because the best part of the plan? That came next. Rachel didn't come back to me that day. Not directly. She vanished into the chaos of final touches, photo sessions, and bridesmaids crying about hairpins. I didn't push it. I had work to do. I wasn't there to confront her. I was there to deliver what she paid for, and then something she didn't. The ceremony went off like a Pinterest dream. Golden hour vows under my cedar arch strings, playing some breathy acoustic cover of a pop song. Guests dabbing their eyes with linen handkerchiefs. From a distance, it looked flawless. To everyone else, this was the perfect beginning of a perfect life. But inside the barn, during the reception, I had planted my little signature. Ava had helped me draw them. Mason helped me glue them shut. 150 small wooden drawers on the memory wall, each labeled with the name of a guest, each drawer holding a folded note, custom-made to be from the couple. Except about 30 of them weren't from the couple. They were from me, and they were true. It started slow. A woman in a plum dress opened her drawer and read, "Thank you for always being a second mom to Jake when things were rough. You were there for him in ways his real family never was." She looked confused. A man in a suit read, "I still remember the summer Jake stayed with you after Dad lost his job and the house almost went under. You saved him." He blinked and whispered, "Roger lost his job?" Someone else read, "I'll never forget how hard it was when Liam stepped in to cover Mom and Dad's mortgage behind the scenes. He never wanted recognition, just peace. But I saw it. I'll always remember." Voices rose. Heads turned. One by one, people started comparing notes. Some looked thrilled. "Wow, I didn't know Jake was so open." Others, less so. The best man got one that said, "You were right about me not being a real brother. I took the easy road. Thanks for always being there for him when I wasn't." He read it, then looked straight at me, standing by the wall with my hands in my pockets. He mouthed, "You wrote this?" I winked. The real chaos began when Rachel's maid of honor pulled her note. She gasped. Loud. The music was still playing, but conversation had shifted. People were whispering, watching, passing drawers around like evidence at a trial. Then someone shouted over the crowd, "Hey Rachel, did you actually grow up with horses? Or was that just part of the theme?" Laughter rippled. She froze. Another guest said, "This says Jake's brother paid off their family's debt during the recession. But I thought you told us they were trust fund kids." Jake spun around, trying to follow the noise. Someone else held up a note and read aloud, "I spent years being called Chaos while Jake played Prince. Funny how you can scrub a name from the guest list, but not from the story." That one got applause. Rachel's face drained of color. She stormed toward me, heels clicking like a ticking bomb, her designer gown dragging through spilled champagne. "What did you do?" she hissed, eyes wide. I didn't flinch. "Gave you exactly what you wanted. A memory wall full of truth." Jake appeared behind her, red-faced. "Are you insane? You've ruined everything." I smiled. "You did that the day you pretended your only sibling didn't exist." Guests were now forming little clusters, comparing notes. One woman, clearly someone's aunt, held up hers and declared, "I told y'all he wasn't the only decent one in that family." Rachel grabbed my arm, hissing low so only I could hear, "Do you have any idea how much this cost us?" I looked at her, calm as ever. "About what it cost me to raise 2 kids alone while your future husband pretended we didn't exist." She blinked. I could see the wheels turning. She wasn't used to being on the defensive. "You won't get away with this," she said. "Oh," I said, "I already did." I didn't stay for the rest. I had no interest in watching the facade crumble in real time. I left while the music was still playing, walked out into the cool night air, and drove home with Ava and Mason passed out in the back seat. The next morning, my phone blew up. Nate sent me a screenshot of a Facebook post. One of the guests had taken a photo of the memory wall with the caption, "When the black sheep turns out to be the real backbone." Wedding truth bombs dropped like confetti. #rustic revenge. Over 2,000 shares. Then came the DMs. Former classmates. Distant cousins. Even people I didn't recognize. "Liam, I had no idea. Your work is incredible. Do you take commissions? My niece is getting married in October. We'd love a memory wall. Real or revenge themed." I laughed until I cried. A week later, my parents called. Not a text. Not an email. A call. I let it ring twice before answering. "Liam," my mom said, voice brittle. "We need to talk." I waited. "We saw the videos," she said. "The wedding fallout. Jake is furious." "Sounds rough." My dad chimed in. "You embarrassed the family." "No," I said. I reminded them we existed. Silence. Then my mom asked the thing that finally made me hang up. "Is there any chance you'd be willing to apologize to Rachel?" I didn't respond. Just pressed end. I haven't spoken to them since. Jake and Rachel moved the honeymoon up. Somewhere offline, I heard. Word is they've been trying to rebrand the story, telling friends that I went rogue, that I was bitter, jealous. Some people believe them, but most, they saw through it. Because when the music fades and the champagne dries, people remember one thing: the truth that made them feel something. My shop is busier than ever now. I've expanded into a bigger space. Brought on Nate full-time. Ava and Mason still run around with paint on their fingers, still help me glue on drawer handles and test rocking chairs. Our new sign reads, Chaos and Company, handcrafted stories in wood. People love it. Ask what it means. I just smile and say, it's a long story. And when I lock up at night, kiss my kids goodnight, and finally sit in the quiet, I think about all the years I stayed small to keep others comfortable. Not anymore. Not ever again. I built a life they tried to erase. And then I signed my name across their fairy tale. The final line? Turns out, the chaos had class all along. It just came with a backbone.
Thank you for watching the entire video. If you like it, please subscribe to the channel.